Welcome, everybody. Today, we're going to talk about finding meaning and passion and purpose in the day-to-day tasks and to-dos and responsibilities that you can't escape, and how you can really take those from feeling like obligation to utilizing them or making them feel like you are fulfilling your purpose. Now, something that I know doesn't get talked about as much, and it kind of frames up a lot of the conversation here. There's that quiet exhaustion of carrying so much that you may have, family and work and bills and responsibilities. And you may still be wondering, like, gosh, why does it all feel so empty when it feels like I'm carrying so much? I see you. I totally get it. If you're the parent who's trying to keep it all together while slowly feeling like maybe you're disappearing into the background of your own life, or maybe you're the entrepreneur who, started with a dream and a fire with a purpose of things they were going to go do, but now feels maybe buried under the deadlines and demands and the day-to-day tasks that need to get done. Or maybe you're an employee who's just been showing up every single day, doing the work and grinding, but silently wondering, like, gosh, is this really it? Is this all that there is? I hope you know what I'm talking about. There's that little voice inside that whispers, like, there's got to be more than just this. Even if everything looks fine on paper, you've got the role or the job, or you're doing well, your kids are doing well in school or whatever. Like, it looks good on paper, but there's just that feeling, right? I've been there. I remember sitting at a desk, just in an absolute sea of cubicles, staring at my screen and hearing that same voice, and it was echoing in my head. I could feel it beating in my chest. Like, I wasn't miserable, but I was just like, I was numb. I mean, I had responsibilities, sure, but like, I also had this sense of I was meant for something more. I didn't know how to get out of there without, like, possibly blowing up life that, I'd built to that point. And gosh, that is not what we want you to do. Like, what I learned is truthfully, something that I want to share all about today and dive in deep. Like, you don't have to escape your life to find that purpose. You don't have to burn it all down and start over. You just need to learn how to see responsibilities differently and start to shift some of the ways that you approach those day-to-day tasks that have all the meaning in the world. Because, like, that meaning that you're craving, like, it's already woven into the day-to-day of your life. You just don't see it yet. It's hiding inside the very obligations that you've been trying to just heads down push through. And so I want to dive a lot into that. Now, my name is Jake Talbert. I'm the founder, I'm the author of this book. It's called The Giver Method. You can get it on Amazon. It's an Amazon bestseller, tons of 5-star reviews. It's helping thousands of people to live a more fulfilled life, discover their gifts and superpowers, and start, utilizing those to create value for others and really step into who it is that they've been wanting to be for years. So I'm going to put a link in the description for the video where you can go get access to it. It's $10. It's the best $10 you could invest in yourself. If you're not ready to invest that $10, I'll also put a free resource there called The Giver's Roadmap. Free resource you can go download, get it. One of the two, go get them and start putting those pieces into place today. You're going to start seeing amazing results from it. I get nothing from these other than knowing that it is shifting how you are going to be able to show up in the world and make a greater impact. Now, today, what I want to do as a part of this video is I want to walk through these 7 kind of real world strategies that could help you to reconnect with your purpose, and not by adding more to your plate by any means, but by shifting how we move through what's already there. Now, these are the same principles that I've helped parents and entrepreneurs and employees just like you bring their energy and their gifts back into life. And I want to remind you that your purpose isn't just something that you find when things are going to finally calm down. It's something that you start creating today, right where you are. And everything I'm going to provide you, tasks, to-dos, actions, like, you may want to write them down. You may want to get out a note or open up a note app or something and just kind of jot down thoughts as you go. But they're all designed to be things that can fit into an already busy, chaotic, hectic life without feeling like we're adding a ton more weight of things for you to go do. I promise you that. So now, if you're ready, I want to dive into some of these things. If you're new here, of course, if you new to the channel, or you have not already, please hit subscribe, ring the bell for notifications. Want to make sure you don't miss out on any of the content we have about, unlocking your gifts, your superpowers, and creating greater impact, living a more fulfilled life. Okay, so let's dive in. Let's start rolling through these different principles and steps and strategies that we have for you. So the first one is about a perspective shift. So, because let's be real, when you have hundreds of things, that are piling up for your attention, gosh, if you're a parent, an entrepreneur, or an employee who's super busy and great, like, this is you, right? Like, it is easy to start seeing responsibilities as just like a long list of, like, the have-tos. I have to do these things. Like, I have to make dinner. I have to go to that meeting. I have to drive the kids. I have to. And once your brain goes into obligation mode, everything really does start to feel heavier than it really is. Like, you're not just tired. Like, you're carrying the weight of every task like it's something being done to you instead of through you. Like, here's the really wild thing. Like, the task itself doesn't have to change in any way. You just have to change the way you see it. As I was working on the book, I did lots of studies on different things from, how we interact with things, how our brain processes, the neuroscience behind it. And neuroscience actually backs this up. Like, when you approach something from a place of stress and resistance or obligation, your brain actually kicks into threat mode. But when you reframe the same exact task as something meaningful or chosen, your brain actually shifts into more of a focus and connection and even satisfaction. Like, trust me, this is not woo-woo in any way. This is just how your brain is wired. Like, I'm not gonna try and sugarcoat this for you. Like, gosh, there's hard stuff in your life, right? And you're learning to see the deeper why that's buried underneath all of that daily grind. So let's make this as practical as we can. Like, so I want you to grab, that note, that piece of paper, so you can write down these things. Like, I want you to start by just going and putting down, like, what are 5 tasks that you have to do every single day that usually feel like they're draining you? And then next to each one, rewrite it from maybe a place of purpose. Like, instead of I have to make dinner, it's, hey, I get to nourish my family and be a part of their day. I get to sit down with them and have dinner with them. Instead of like, gosh, I have to go to that meeting. I have to take this meeting. You shift it to, like, this is my chance to help guide the team or my client, and bring clarity to this situation. Like, this may sound simple, but that clarity, like, it absolutely changes everything for you. It starts to rewire your brain to see these things as purpose and opportunity. And then here's another one. Start catching yourself in real time when you start to say, like, well, I have to, like, and try flipping it to that I get to or I choose to. Like, it's not about pretending that every responsibility is fun, because, gosh, I know they're not. I know that cleaning the bathroom or, yard work, like, there are things that just they're not fun. But it's about reminding yourself that even non-negotiables still hold value when you decide to see them in that sort of a way. It's a small language shift, but it has a big ripple. I could see, people who have, I have to put my kids to bed. I'm like, oh gosh, I get to put my kids to bed. I get to put my son, who is 3, to bed, and I get to go in there and sit with him, help him change into his jammies. I get to have him sit there and he tries to read me a book. And we sit there and just talk, and we'll do shadows on the ceiling. Like, I get to do that. Yard work. I get to do my yard. I choose to do my yard work. I could probably pay someone to do it. I enjoy doing it. 1, because I can get my thoughts out while I'm working. And 2, I really do like how my yard looks, and I take pride in that. And then, of course, the next thing is, whatever you're going to do, however you start to reframe that, connect each of your responsibilities back to one of your own values. If you value growth, how is this task connected to growth? If you value service, who benefits from you showing up that way? And so this is going to create this value alignment that you need, where you stop seeing these things happening to you and start seeing them like how you are moving through them. When you see responsibilities shape, how you see them, it's going to shape how you experience them. Everything feels like a burden. Gosh, it's going to steal your energy, and before you even begin it. But when you start to reclaim that perspective, like, you bring this completely different presence to your day. Now, if you need to, go and Google search different values that you may have. If you don't know what yours are, use a ChatGPT or a Claude or something to help you generate ideas of, come up with, like, your list of values that you hold true, like, growth or whatever it may be. Find what those are and hold true to them as a part of your daily tasks that you're doing. Now, the second thing I want to cover is all about this contribution focus. Like, talk about something that happens when life starts to feel like it's a big to-do list for you. You start noticing what everything is almost costing you. There are 3 currencies in life: time, energy, and money. And within each of those, there's also, like, impacts on your freedom. And you start to review and start to look at things in that sort of a way, like, oh my gosh, this is what it's costing me. And it's totally normal. When you're worn thin, you're going to focus on, the like, naturally turn things inward at that point. But the problem is that, the more that we fixate on what we're losing, again, the heavier it starts to feel. It's like dragging that, bag of bricks around with you, and just trying to get through the day. So a contribution focus is about flipping that, similar to what we talked about with your purpose. Like, instead of thinking, like, what's draining me, it's like, well, gosh, who is this helping? The truth is that every single thing that you do, even boring or repetitive stuff, like, it serves somebody. Maybe it's your partner, spouse, your coworker, your kids, your team, your future self even. Like, you're not just folding laundry, you're creating a peaceful environment. I call myself the laundry fairy because I fold our youngest and then my wife and I's clothes every weekend. I do all the laundry. I love doing that and creating that peaceful environment. You're not just answering emails, you're giving clarity and support to people who rely on you. You're not just driving carpool. You are truly creating a safe space and a safe travel method, and emotional stability for your kids. The real impact in what you do, even when it doesn't feel like it in that moment. So, how do we start to bring this to life? We have to start by actually naming who's benefiting it. So maybe you need to have a thing you track on your phone or something that's like, what's the beneficiary check that I have, where I'm going to take one thing from, that you do, the one thing that's on your plate that maybe feels heavy, and ask yourself, who is this actually for? And I don't mean vague in any way, or a general sense. Get extremely specific. If it's a client report, maybe it helps your manager make better decisions. If it's dinner, maybe it's your way of helping your teenager feel grounded in a completely chaotic world. Whatever it is, write it down. Write it down and start to say it out loud. Sometimes you have to say it before you do the task, and helps you to start to look at it differently, and then let it reframe the energy you bring to it. And then, of course, you could try this, of course, but before you jump into any sort of a task or responsibility that usually drains you, take the 30 seconds to picture the outcome. Imagine the person on the other side of your effort, the relief you're going to feel, what clarity that you're creating. A quick visualization, it might sound really small, but it changes how your brain processes the task. And so you're not just doing something, you're contributing to something so much more. And then a bonus move that you could do that really works is journal about this. Record your thoughts and journal about it. Every night, jot down maybe 2 to 3 ways you showed up for somebody else. Not the big stuff, but the quiet stuff. You answered the question for the coworker. You took some time to make your kid feel special. You give them an extra hug. You cleaned the kitchen so that your spouse could just walk into peace and quiet. These tiny actions are proof that your life is making an impact even on the hardest days. It matters so much. That obligation can isolate you when you start to think of it that way. It makes you feel like you're carrying the world alone. But when you reconnect with this idea of I'm creating this ripple, it totally changes your actions. It shifts everything for you, and you stop feeling like a machine grinding through the schedule. So remembering your passion of making a difference for others. The same task that used to drain you could honestly make you feel completely different and uplifted. It's so much easier and actually have so much more worth to it at that point. Now, the third one is about finding the way to integrate growth as a system for that. So, because let me guess, when you think about growing, developing new skills, or becoming the better version of yourself, it probably feels like something extra. So I said at the beginning of the video, I want to position all these things in ways that you can do them without adding a ton to your plate. Something I love to do, and if I had more time or fewer obligations, a little more room to breathe, I would go do blank, right? I've said this before. I'm sure you have. Most of us have divided our lives into 2 buckets: the things that drain us and the things that grow us. And for some reason, we convince ourselves that those 2 cannot happen in the same space. And so that's where coming up with a growth integration system flips that belief on its head for you. What if you just took your daily responsibilities and the ones that feel like they've got a lot of weight, What if they're actually some of the best training grounds for growth that you possibly have? What if you didn't have to wait until the whole schedule is clear to start becoming who you're meant to be? Every parenting moment, every work call, every logistical headache, these aren't blocks to your development. They actually are your development. And if you choose to engage them in that way, you can start to see so much more practical ways that it shows up for you. So when you put this into practice, you can start looking at mapping out the opportunities for growth. So you look at what's already on your plate and you ask yourself, what skill could I maybe stretch or sharpen in these? If you're running back-to-back meetings, maybe it's the chance to get better at listening without jumping in. Maybe it's better at time management and setting boundaries. If you're managing chaos at home, maybe that's the moment for you to grow your patience or your adaptability, or enrolling your children in on something that you want to be doing. Don't try to fix everything at once. Just pick one small skill, that one area, just one thing, and start there. And then layer in these micro growth goals. Wow, that got me. So pick a task, any regular task, something that you're going to be doing anyway. And then you just set the small intention around it. So maybe in the next conversation with a client, you challenge yourself to stay calm and curious when they push back. Maybe while you're helping your kids do their homework, you're working on math or something, you try explaining the concept in maybe a couple different ways and build your communication muscle. Like, these aren't about doing anything more. They're just about, doing what you're already doing, but doing it intentionally and with a growth lens. One of my favorite ways to keep momentum going is something that I call a skill transfer awareness. So after a tough day, pause and ask yourself, like, what did I practice today that I'm going to be grateful for tomorrow? That patience that I used during bedtime negotiations, or the leadership training, that flexibility you showed when plans changed at the very last minute, like that resilience showing up in real time. Like, when you start noticing how your growth in one area spills over into everything else, your daily life just starts to feel, like a mental growth gym, becoming who it is that you want to be. And, it's important, because if you're always waiting for maybe the right time to grow, you're just going to be stuck forever. Your real life, the things around you with its obligations and responsibilities, even the frustrations, it's already full of these opportunities to develop your strengths that matter most. And it's about setting that intentionality. When you bring intention to what's already happening, you stop seeing these as the to-do lists that are draining you, and you start seeing them as the space where I can build character, I can deepen my capability, and I can even move forward. You don't need to retreat or go on some sort of a sabbatical to grow. Like, you just need to look at your life that you already have and ask, like, how could this stretch me into something even better? Now, our fourth one is about, mindful engagement and thinking about it that way. So something that we all do, even when we're not realizing it, is that we just go into the motions of autopilot. I click into autopilot all the time. You're folding laundry while, you're replaying a tough conversation. You're answering emails while halfway watching some sort of a show. You're helping your kid get to bed, but your brain's already on tomorrow's morning meeting and picking through the tasks that you're going to be doing. And the problem with that is that you're never actually where you are. Think about it. You're not fully in any moment at that point, but you're not really escaping either. You're trying to watch a show maybe to relax, but at the same time, you're not letting yourself relax as a part of that. Mindful energy and mindful engagement practice is about, pulling yourself back into the present moment, not in some like over the top or, sit on a pillow kind of a way, but real, just grounded way that helps you actually experience your life again. This isn't about doing more in any way. It's about, look, let's take what we're already doing with a little more presence, a little more attention, and a little more heart. Because when you actually present, when you look at your life, even through the routine that you have to do, washing dishes or sending that 5th follow-up email, you start to feel different when you try to show up. Look at it how I can be more present and show up and intentional. More textured, less draining, more maybe it's even more meaningful to you. So to make this really start to work within a busy life, start with what I call a single task commitment. Or I'm going to choose one thing today, just one thing, and I'm going to give it my full attention. That's it. One thing. Not I'm going to do everything I do. When I drive to school, when I'm on my grocery store run, or team morning check-in, whatever it is, I'm going to do it without multitasking. I'm not going to scroll through things. I'm not going to plan the next 5 moves. I'm just going to be all in that moment right then. Even for a few minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, that's the kind of focus that can reset your entire nervous system. Another way that you can shift this kind of presence is through what I call a sensory anchor. Basically, while you're doing something totally ordinary, making coffee or packing lunches, bring awareness, to what you can actually feel. What are you seeing? What do you smell? What do you hear? Notice the texture on the countertop. Smell the food, or the sound of the fridge humming behind you. It's not about being mystical or anything in any way. It's just about landing in the moment. Your body is always present. You just have to meet it there. You just have to clue into your senses that are happening around you. All right. You also could try something that you could look at is this idea of a beginning, middle, and end reset. So before you start something, just take that breath, set a mental tone, I want to be present for this, and here's why I would actually take it another extent. And then when you finish, take a couple seconds to name what you did and let yourself feel a tiny bit of closure before you rush to the next thing. These sort of mental bookends, Like they're going to create the shape and the space where, there used to be a lot of blur. Now this is going to be so important because like if you're never really fully present in your life, it doesn't matter how productive or responsible you are, it feels like you're just missing something. And as you start to feel those things, it becomes more and more exhausting. Being present doesn't make your to-do list shorter, but it makes it feel more grounded and more connected and more real. It helps you actually experience those moments that you've been working hard to create for your family or for your team, for your clients, or for yourself. You don't need more hours in the day. You just need to show up in the ones that you already have. And trust me, when you do that, you're going to come out of it with so much more energy as a part of that. Now, the next one is starting to find the ways to integrate identity more into day-to-day. One of the hardest parts of living in that sort of, I've got all these obligations and tasks, which really is a survival mode. Like one of the hardest parts of it isn't the busy schedule. It's just the way that you start to feel like a stranger in your own life. You're doing all the things. You're running the business. You're raising your kids. You're showing up to work. But deep down, you start thinking like, where did I go? And you don't recognize yourself in the roles you're playing. Everything starts to feel like maybe just an act. Like the real you has been put on hold while you take care of everything else for everyone else, right? And that disconnect, it's going to eat away your energy more than any task ever could. And so when the things that you do all day feel separate from who you actually are, it creates that internal tension that slowly drains your sense of meaning. And but good news, of course, is that you don't have to blow up your life to reconnect with that. You can start to bring back your identity, and slowly bring it back into the picture. And so you want to start to how do I integrate my identity and create a framework about that? It's about pulling your authentic self into the roles you already play, so that you're not performing a part. You're actually expressing who you are while you're doing the things that you already do. So start by flipping how you think about your roles. It's this role reframing practice. It isn't instead of saying gosh, I have to manage my team, it's I'm someone that develops people and helps them to grow. Instead of gosh, I have to take care of my kids, I'm shifting that to I get to I'm guiding these small humans to find their way and be better people. Hopefully you can see how different that feels. You're not denying any responsibility. You're just choosing to show up within your own identity, not just as a duty, but as something greater. And when you look at your natural strengths, or what I call your gifts and your superpowers, the stuff that just makes you, maybe it's you're great at encouraging, or you think in really clear systems, or you bring tons of calm when there's chaos. Just ask yourself how could I bring more of that into my obligations? If you're creative, how could you approach the routine, your work routine or home tasks, with a little more flair? If you're good at seeing the big picture, how could you bring that into your meetings or into parenting? It's about making space for the real you to show up in your responsibilities that you already have. And another thing you could do is that is really going to have an impact is create what's your personal style of contribution that you want to have. Think about how you do things when you're at your absolute best. Maybe you bring humor to heavy situations. Maybe you lead with empathy in a space where others deliver outcomes. Just define your approach to parenting or leadership or work that feels like your own, and then own it. And it's going to help you stop copying what others are doing and start building routines that actually reflect on your own values. This sort of a framework, it helps you living your life where you are now, and what you constantly do. If you're at odds, that's not going to be sustainable. When you always see or when you always feel like you have to leave your real self behind because I've got my adult responsibilities, you end up exhausted and resentful and unsure of who you are anymore. But when you bring your identity to these roles, gosh, when things you do reflect the person you are, it just changes everything, and you stop feeling like you're disappearing behind responsibilities and feeling gosh, I'm fully showing up through them. Now, the next one is just going to be connection, creating an enhancement to your approach with connection. Something that, almost always takes a hit when you're overwhelmed is that connection, not just with others, but with yourself and what really matters. When life turns into the checklist, we start treating people like, line items, conversations become logistical. It's why there's the weird, hey, how was your weekend? It was great. It was good. Gosh, time together becomes rushed. And the very relationships that maybe used to fill us up start to feel more like things that we have to manage. And when that happens, it's easy to lose the thread and forget these responsibilities mattered, in the first place. And that's where this sort of approach comes in. Like, so the connection enhancement approach is all about shifting the focus back to the people you're responsible for. So the task might look the same, the routine, the meeting, the weekly grocery store run, but the experience changes when you reconnect with the humans, as a part of it. So when you remember that, the lunch that you're packing is for a kid who feels cared about when they open it, or the meeting you're leading is full of people who are craving encouragement and direction and support, suddenly the obligation turns into an opportunity for impact. So start putting this into play, like a few minutes, like just take a few minutes and do a relationship scan. Think about the main areas of responsibility you have in family and work, community, church, anything like that, and ask yourself, like, who's impacted by how I show up here? And don't just say, like, my coworkers, my family. Like, get very specific. Who counts on you? Name them. Who feels the ripple of your energy, your attention, your follow through? And once you've got clarity, ask yourself, like, what could I bring more to, connect with in the moments with them? And it's not about doing more. It's just about being more present, more curious, and more human when we're connecting. Look for those connection windows in the things you already have. Maybe it's asking your kid one really intentional question at breakfast instead of rushing through the morning. Maybe it's opening your next team meeting with a personal check-in instead of diving into the agenda, or making eye contact and saying thank you to the barista who hands you your coffee. Like, those moments just take seconds, but they can totally set the tone. And you create this simple connection rituals inside of your daily routine. Maybe it's, I'm going to say I appreciate things more and more to my partner at the end of the day. I'm going to, close team meetings by sharing a win that maybe they didn't see. I'm going to start car rides with maybe a story swap with my kids. Like, those rituals, they don't need to be big, crazy, profound. Like, they just need to be consistent. They're those little anchors. Remind everyone we're still connected. We still matter to we still matter to each other. We're not just getting through this. We're going to be a part of it together. Now, the last principle is all about purpose stacking. Now, we've talked a lot about multiple things. There's going to be a little bit of repetition on this one, but hear me out. When we wrap that into something that's can be a totally big game change for you. I've seen it be a big game changer for people I've worked with, especially those who feel like there's never enough time for what really matters. Most of us live, like meaning has to wait for our turn. We knock out all the obligations that we have first, and then we try to squeeze in some good stuff. The things that maybe light us up, that help us to grow or connect with others. But life isn't going to leave a lot of space ever. And when meaning is always comes second to something, like, eventually it never comes. So this problem stack method is about flipping the story instead of separating the things you have, into just the to-do things and then meaning things. Like, no, I'm going to start layering them together and taking those responsibilities that are already filling your calendar, the carpool or the reports or the meetings or the dishes, and how can I look as an act of connection or growth or clarity? Like, that's what all these things are about that we talked about. It's not just a deliverable. It's my chance to practice leadership, encourage something new, or bring my unique voice to the table. And so you can use any of the action items that we talked about, but it needs to be grounded in your purpose, in what you're trying to accomplish as a part of that. Now, let's land this a little bit. Like, we talked through 7 real life ways that you can turn in, like, everyday responsibilities into something that actually feels like it matters again. It's not quitting your job, not by disappearing into some mountain cabin for a month to find yourself, but by changing how you show up to the stuff that's already on your plate. Because let's be honest, you're not waiting, we're not waiting for these things to go away. And in fact, more things typically start to show up. What you're actually looking for, you're craving for meaning in the things that you're already doing, right? And so now you've got some tools to do exactly that. So think of you could be creating, as a parent, creating space for joy inside of all the chaos. It could be as an entrepreneur waiting to reconnect with your spark, that got you started. As an employee, like showing up to work, feeling like you have, you're not just leaving your soul in the parking lot. Now, once again, we don't want to add to your plate. It's just about shifting the way that you move through life that you've already built. You don't have to wait for someday to feel purposeful. You don't need to wait for perfect conditions for an open, wide schedule. You just need to take these principles, which, maybe whichever one hits you the hardest, and try them for a week. Whatever it is, just start there. Pick one of them. And you don't have to be perfect. Just be more present. Be more intentional. Be more you. Now, if this hits home for you, then once again, I'm going to recommend that you grab a copy of my book, The Giver Method. I'll put a link down in the description. I'm going to, we'll dive deeper like into discovering your gifts and superpowers, aligning yourself with your impact, and building a life that doesn't just look good on paper, but feels like yours again. Once again, the link will be down in the description. The free resource of the Giver's Roadmap will be there as well. If this is something, if this sparked something for you, let me know in the comments. Let me know what you want to try this week. If this message hit home, then go ahead and like and subscribe. Share it with someone who might need it, and it quietly carrying the same sort of a weight that you have. Because here's what I believe. You're not just checking boxes any given day where you're going through tasks and responsibilities. You're not just checking the boxes. You're not just doing what needs to get done. You're actually building a life, and every obligation or responsibility, it's your chance to do it with purpose. Not someday, but right now, and start living a way more fulfilled life. And so until next time, I'm just going to invite you to keep showing up, keep giving your gifts and superpowers, and remembering that meaning, it isn't out there waiting to be found. It's already inside you, and you just need to bring it to light one step at a time in these light shifts that you can make. And so until next time, have a great rest of your day. We'll catch you in our next video. Have a good one.